morning, Are Weiser High School. I'm Caitlin Pearsall, and welcome to our remote edition of We Are Weiser Week 4. Governor Tom Wolf officially closed all schools for the remainder of the school year, leaving many unresolved questions. Mr. Galtere joins us to explain in detail how the grading scale will work for the remainder of the year, answering many of your questions.
Hey students of Conrad Weiser, it's Mr. Galtere. I know there have been a lot of questions about the new grading scale for the second semester classes. We know many of you have been working hard, but have been frustrated because it's been difficult to maintain your grades. We actually did a survey to see how many grades actually had dropped since this began. Here's why the grading scale looks the way it does. We wanted an A to encompass all of 90%, no A minuses, to reflect your hard work. We did the same for B's, no B minuses, and we did make it count for the GPA so the college transcripts can see that you worked hard to receive a grade. We extended the passing grade down to 50% for two reasons. We wanted to take some pressure off students who are doing everything they can just to keep their heads above water. We also wanted to encourage students who were failing, really had no chance to pass with the previous grading scale, and give them that opportunity to finish strong and still pass a class by reaching that 50%. We did have a caveat for math and world language. If you receive a grade between 50 and 69%, you'll still receive high school credit. However, because those courses need such a strong base knowledge, you would have to retake that class. A question came up about seeing your new grade in Skyward. This will be shown in your grade book under the FIN on the far right side of your grade book, FIN, which stands for final grade, not the final exam, but final grade. This is only updated after scores are put into Skyward. We are going to ask teachers to have all their grades updated by Sunday night so you can see each Monday morning where you stand. We also have given more weight to the fourth market period because you spent most of that time in school. We know you did not choose to be online learners. Otherwise, you would be in our Scout Virtual Academy. But you are still a Conrad Weiser student, and that means something. There are expectations. Looking back at this, you are one of the few in the state, and the country for that matter, who did not miss any school. This is no doubt a life-changing event. It's been extremely frustrating for everyone. But I can honestly say I've never been more proud of the students, the teachers, and fellow administrators of Conrad Weiser. I am so proud to be a Scout, and I hope you are too. Take care and be safe.
Stay strong, Weiser, and enjoy this week's videos.
Attention all FFA members. Due to the circumstances, the FSA officers have decided to hold a digital election for next year's officer team. The applications can be found on Schoology for anyone that is interested in becoming a part of the team for the years of 2020 to 2021. You are able to apply for any position that you are interested in holding. These applications will be due on May 15th, with the election being held the following week. Thank you for all your patience during this time.
I know that this is a really, really hard time for, if not everyone, a lot of people. There's a lot of change going on around us right now, restrictions and rules constantly being placed, and hearing about this virus has almost become impossible to escape. We all walk around with the same scared mindset of, who's next? Am I going to get sick? With our gloves attached to our hands and our masks tied to our face, we constantly listen to our phones, computers, TVs, and what people are saying on the streets. We act out in a panic, clearing all the shelves in the grocery stores, locking ourselves up, and washing our hands constantly. Now that doesn't sound so bad. We're just flattening the curve, right? We stay at home with our eyes glued to our phones. We listen to our TVs and the articles being published to scare everyone who can see. But the sad reality is that some of us have become so blind to realize how unhealthy and brainwashing it can be. Don't let fear become more deadly than the virus itself. Don't let the numbers and the articles that pop up on your screen scare you into thinking that this is all life will ever be. I watched this video by Prince Ye, a logical man who creates inspiring videos to enlighten people. He explains in his most recent video about the coronavirus that you can't let fear control you. He says, be alert, not fearful. And I understand that this pandemic is deadly and it's scary and it has taken the lives of hundreds to thousands and thousands of people. And you may feel that you have no control and that the coronavirus is inescapable. But you have to remember that you have complete control on how you react. I'm not saying everyone is acting out in a negative way, but you need to remember to not let fear get to you. Turn off your TV, put down your phone, and focus on yourself. Yes, wash your hands, and yes, social distance yourself so we can flatten the curve and move on with our lives, but don't lose yourself in the process. Take this time to find a hobby, get some exercise, and find your peace. I know that this is hard and there's a lot of negativity, but you have to try to stay positive and be the best person you can be during this quarantine.
So I'm Makenna Seidel, and I'm here today with Christy Seidel.
So I have been a registered nurse for 27 years, working most of my time in the ICU, and recently became a nurse practitioner working in the hospital. So some of what I do is I see patients who are rule out COVID or COVID positive and some of the unfortunate outcomes that arise from this disease process.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about the virus fact versus fiction. So what are some myths that we've been hearing and how we can maybe bust them? So the first myth is when you catch the virus, that means that you have it forever or you can't recover from the virus.
If you become sick, you stay home. They're telling people in the general community to quarantine for 2 weeks, just monitoring and quarantining away from other family members. They're asking that people are not coming to the hospital unless they are having severe problems with shortness of breath. But cough and fever and sometimes abdominal pain are typical symptoms that you'll see that are safe to stay at home for.
Our next myth is that only adults or older people or people who are immunocompromised can get the virus or die from the virus.
While this is the largest population that does seem to get the sickest are older patients older than 65 with comorbidities, and by that I mean other disease processes, hypertension, heart disease, COPD, smokers, diabetics. They have a lowered immune system because their organs aren't functioning up to par to begin with. So those are typically the highest risk patients, not so much for contracting it, but for not being able to fight it. If those people stay at home and don't come in contact with the virus, they won't get it, but they get sicker. It does not mean that someone who's completely healthy or younger cannot get it, but they would typically have a shorter course or a less severe course. We're not seeing as many deaths, fatalities, really highly sick people who are younger, but it does happen, and it has happened.
So there's a myth that COVID is just like the flu.
So to say that it's just like the flu would be incorrect, because we have not seen it before. So the original thought was that, oh, this is like a flu, why are we panicking? It's, the flu has killed more people than this. But the problem is that this is getting younger people, and it's not behaving exactly like the flu. It has mutated. It's not always a predictable course. Some people are recovering, and unfortunately, when most people get to the point where they're on a ventilator, there's an 80% chance that you will die if you're on the ventilator, because your lungs become so badly damaged, and I don't think you see that level of lung damage with the flu typically.
So our next myth is about the face masks and gloves and sorts of protection that people are using to keep themselves safer when going to the grocery store or out in public. And there's a lot of controversy between how much it actually helps and especially how to wear them correctly.
In the healthcare system, there's a big shortage of PPE, which is personal protective equipment. That includes masks, gloves, gowns, goggles, face shields, and especially the N95 respirator masks. You hear a lot about N95. Most people don't know what they are. That is actually a very specific mask that all healthcare personnel have to be fitted for every year to make sure that they're in the proper size for it to do its job. It's a small particle filtration system that it keeps out any airborne diseases such as measles and TB that are airborne and can hang out in the air for hours at a time. Now the question is the N95 going to protect people in the outside world? Well, if you get your hands on an N95, number one, you don't know if it's going to fit properly. Number two, you don't have business having an N95 in the public because they're needed in the hospital where these patients are having aerosolized procedures where there's aerosoled COVID in the air, patients who are being intubated, put on the ventilator, who are having bronchoscopies, who are on certain kinds of oxygen delivery that puts that COVID into the air. To a lesser degree, the surgical masks that you see people wearing and homemade masks, they're a good idea. Mostly it's to protect you from touching your face, so that if you're out grocery shopping, you're not touching an infected surface and then touching your face. It's not so much keeping other people's germs out of your mouth, it's keeping you from touching your face and keeping droplets, if you are infected, droplets of the COVID from coming out through speech, coughing, sneezing. You're keeping that contained to yourself. But the problem with that is that people wear the mask incorrectly. This is an example of a homemade mask. This is made out of cloth with 2 rubber bands on the side. For this to be effective, you have to handle it properly, apply it, and take it off properly. So before you put your mask on, you want to use hand sanitizer or wash your hands with soap and water. With clean hands, you handle the mask like this on either side. Place it over your face and over your ears. And from the underneath is where you're going to straighten out any lumps or bumps. You never want to touch the front of the mask. The front of the mask is considered contaminated. When you've done your shopping or you've spent your time in public and you get home, you wash your hands are clean. You remove the mask. You never touch the front of the mask. You can fold it inward upon itself so that the front is contained and it's never touched. These can be hand washed, washed in the washing machine, and that should be enough to kill the virus. It's not heat resistant, so hot water wash would do the job. But the biggest thing about wearing a mask is wearing it correctly. You don't want it like this. You don't want it like this. It has to be over the nose and the mouth. And never touch the front of the mask.
All right, so the next myth is that COVID-19 is in the air that we're breathing right now.
It can survive in the airborne for a period of time. We're only using N95s in the hospital when we're in the presence of a suspected COVID, a positive COVID, or a patient who's having an aerosolized treatment. So out in the general public, we wouldn't be wearing N95s. And that's where the 6-foot social distancing come in. The 6 feet, droplets don't travel 6 feet. The farthest they have been seen to go is 3 feet. So if you're staying past 3 feet, you're not likely to get in touch with anyone else's droplet secretions.
So our next myth is that social distancing is useless.
Well, again, social distancing, it's about large groups of people. it's transmitted from secretions. So you're talking to people, you're unknowingly spitting on people, on other people's foods and drinks, you're touching your face, you're touching your nose, and then you're touching other surfaces. And other people are touching those surfaces. So if we start with people not being in large gatherings, keeping them apart and not having large groups, then you cut down on the transmission of your secretions and whatnot. So 6 feet apart is good to avoid the droplets, cutting down on large gatherings so that you're not touching things that could be contaminated.
The last myth, and the one that seems to be very big, especially among my age group, and is very controversial, I've seen both sides of this quite a lot, is that young, healthy teens or young, healthy adults either won't get it, or if they do get it, they will completely recover. They don't have to worry about it.
Well, again, there's no absolutes in anything. Nobody's promised or guaranteed a healthy life, but typically younger people, healthier people come through better, but there could be some genetic components that leave you at higher risk to not do well from certain diseases. So I think there are people out there who have been young and healthy who have died from this, but I think the general consensus is that the majority of people who are doing very poorly are not the young teens. But that does not mean that you shouldn't be careful, because you are a vessel. If you're not feeling super sick, or you're not showing symptoms at all, or you're recovering, you can pass it on to someone else who would not do well with it, a grandparent, someone who's a smoker. And by you going out and going to Dunkin' Donuts and touching the door handle, and then someone else touching that door handle, they may not fare as well from the virus as you did. So you have to protect yourself when you're sick.
Those are all of our myths, but lastly, I just wanted to touch on why we should be taking this seriously, because I have heard a lot of sad stories from you and from other people in general, and I think that it's important that everybody kind of knows that it's not just them. They're not the only people who are being affected by this, and there's some real reasons why we should stay home.
People are struggling staying at home, people are missing work, people are missing important events, birthdays, weddings, graduations. It's very stressful, but on the flip side of that, being in the hospital, seeing patients who are at end of life, being withdrawn off the ventilator knowing they're going to die and they can't have any visitors and they're saying goodbye to family members on FaceTime, it's really disheartening. And even though you might think, oh, well, that person's 88 years old, they had a good life. That's somebody's parent, that's somebody's grandparent. That person means something to somebody. So we all need to be sensitive to that there's a lot of loss out there, and we need to just remember to do our share, and that's just complying with the recommendations until we've made the peak and we're on the downslope and we've seen some decrease in this awful disease, and that we can get back on with our lives. It's a very short period of time if you're talking about a lifetime, and I think we can withstand the sacrifice.
My best friend is probably Maeve Keeney.
My mom.
Jeffrey Hackman.
Allison Grass. Her.
Carol Daltrick.
Emily Clone.
Either Sarah Haynes or my cat.
My best friend is Diamond Wanko. Dallas.
Isaiah.
My best friends are Caitlin and Gabby.
Turner.
Tori.
Probably Emily.
Being a best friend means being there for one another, like when no one else is.
You need to be there for them and just have their back at all costs, and just be a real pal,
Just always being there for each other and making each other laugh and just having a good time.
Someone who always there for you, gives you answers to stuff.
Someone that don't keep secrets. Always being reliable.
Don't let the person down. Don't give up on your best friend.
Trustworthy, always there for you.
The person who's always by your side and loves you for who you are.
It means always being there for someone.
It means that you always are there to support each other and make each other happy when you're sad.
Being there for the person no matter what, through thick and thin.
That they're always there for you.
Is able to enjoy the good times and help me through the bad times.
We talk to each other about stuff that's bothering us.
He brings me food when it's a holiday or a birthday, and it makes me feel so much better.
He gives me answers in class.
You're nice to me.
She does a lot for me. She always there. She talks to me a lot.
Is there for me at my lowest points.
She's always there for me, for sure. She always gives me advice. She does everything I need her to.
Like lots of different things.
They make me laugh and we all like to rant to each other.
She overall makes me a happier person.
She's always there for me when I need it most.
We play video games.
She drives me around.
I'm always being there for them.
She's my soulmate.
Thank you for being my best friend.
Thank you for being my best friends.
Thank you for being my best friend.
And thank you for being my best friend.
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 Thanks for being my best friend.
Thank you for being my best friend.
Thank you for being my best friend.
Thank you for being my best friend.
Getting tired of eating the same old thing every day for lunch. So I'm going to teach you how to make my famous turkey and cheese sandwich. Get a butter knife, butter on one slice, get the mayo, be generous with it, mayo on the other slice. Take your turkey, probably 4 slices of it or so, put it on that sandwich. Spread it out though. Put it on the butter side, not the mayo side. Take the cheese. Okay, whatever kind of cheese you like. I use American cheese because it's the best. So take your cheese, about a slice or 2 maybe. Put that on top of the turkey. Don't touch it to the mayo yet. Then, this is a secret ingredient to my turkey and cheese sandwich. Potato chips. Open the bag. Put the potato chips on the mayo. The potato chips go on the mayo. This is the most important part of the whole thing. Take the slice with the butter, the turkey, and the cheese on it, put it on top of the chips, and then listen for that crunch.
So me and my sister are going to try to learn a TikTok, and I thought it would be fun to record it because we both suck at dancing or just anything with our feet, so I thought it would be fun to record it. Here's a TikTok we're doing. Insert clip here. I'll just show you our progress and then the end result, and if anything funny happens. Hopefully it does. Hopefully someone falls. So, ooh na na na, ooh na na na, ooh na na, ooh na na, ooh ooh.
Christ, my toe! You hurt me with your toe! Switch! Okay. I did that part wrong. Hold on. So we do this. See, this person switches too. See, watch. You should hit with that one, and then we hit with this one. Oh, okay. Alright, so. Take her out and just leave her out there.
Okay.
Yeah!
We finished the dance, now we're gonna
I'm gonna record it.
One of the most overlooked aspects of spring are the days when the weather isn't as nice and it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's also important to look at these days and to realize that they have their own beauty within themselves.
Sometimes it feels like the world has stopped, or you wish the world would stop. Everything you worked for, everything you loved, gone, but yet the world still moves. Your life is put on pause, while everyone else's is still in play. They still get up, go to work every day, while you're stuck, wondering, what if? Wondering if you would have gotten that medal, wondering if you would have found the right heels, wondering if you'll walk across that stage, wondering, what about us? All we can do is wonder and wait for things to be normal, if they will ever be normal again.
Hey, it's Elise.
It's Alex.
For the past few days, I was with Alex in Philly. He has an apartment in Drexel Hill. We just flew the drone around the city at night. The next day, back to the city, but during the daytime. It's a different part of Philly. What part of Philly were we at? Later that night, we went to the Ben Franklin Bridge because it looks so pretty lit up. So I hope you enjoyed our little trip.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching, Scouts. We'll see you next Monday for more news and videos. Stay safe, wash your hands, and practice social distancing.